The Middle East stands on the edge, a precipice overlooking a landscape fraught with peril. Decades of simmering tensions, proxy conflicts, and deep-seated mistrust have converged to create a powder keg, threatening to ignite a regional conflagration. The delicate balance of power, painstakingly maintained through fragile treaties and uneasy alliances, is now teetering precariously. Of a catastrophic war, a descent into chaos that could engulf the entire region and beyond. The consequences of such a conflict are almost unimaginable, with the potential for widespread devastation, humanitarian crises, and long-lasting instability. As Israel and Iran's long-simmering rivalry, a rivalry fueled by ideological differences, geopolitical ambitions, and historical grievances, erupts into open conflict. The carefully constructed facade of deterrence has crumbled, replaced by a dangerous cycle of escalation and retaliation. The specter of all-out war looms large, casting a shadow of uncertainty over the entire region. For years, their shadow war, a clandestine struggle fought in the shadows through proxies and covert operations, has been the defining characteristic of their relationship. Played out through proxies and covert operations, a complex web of alliances and rivalries that has fueled instability across the Middle East. From Lebanon to Yemen, Syria to Iraq, the fingerprints of both nations have been evident in numerous conflicts. But the past 12 days have seen a dramatic shift in the dynamics of this conflict, a move away from the shadows and into the harsh light of direct confrontation. Direct military confrontations, a series of escalating attacks and retaliations that have shattered the illusion of containment and brought the region to the brink of all-out war, that threatened to destabilize the entire region. The delicate balance of power is now hanging by a thread, and the consequences of a full-scale conflict could be catastrophic, not only for the Middle East, but for the entire world. At the heart of this crisis, the central point of contention and the primary driver of the escalating tensions is Iran's nuclear program, a program that has been the subject of intense international scrutiny and debate for decades. Israel sees it as an existential threat, a direct and unacceptable challenge to its security and survival, while Iran claims peaceful intent, asserting that its nuclear program is solely for civilian purposes, such as energy production and medical research. The world now watches anxiously, with bated breath, as the situation unfolds, fully aware of the potential for a devastating escalation. As the U.S. announces a ceasefire, a fragile attempt to de-escalate the situation and prevent further bloodshed, but with no confirmation from Israel or Iran, the two key players in this conflict, uncertainty reigns. The path forward remains unclear, and the possibility of renewed hostilities looms large. The stakes are global. The implications of this conflict extend far beyond the borders of the Middle East. Energy security, the stability of global energy markets is directly threatened by the potential disruption of oil supplies from the region. Regional stability, the entire Middle East is at risk of being plunged into further chaos and instability, with potentially devastating consequences for its people. And the future of international diplomacy, the credibility and effectiveness of international institutions and diplomatic efforts to resolve conflicts, are being put to the test. Hang in the balance. This is a critical moment in history, a turning point that could determine the future of the Middle East and the world. To understand what's at risk, to fully grasp the gravity of the situation and the potential consequences of further escalation, we must examine the strikes, the initial acts of aggression that triggered this dangerous cycle of escalation, the retaliation, the tit-for-tat responses that have ratcheted up tensions and brought the region to the brink of war, and the high-stakes diplomacy that followed. The frantic efforts to de-escalate the situation and prevent a full-blown conflict. The world watched with bated breath as tensions in the Middle East reached a boiling point. On June 21, 2025, a date that would forever be etched in the annals of geopolitical history, Israel, with the tacit and material support of the United States, launched a daring and meticulously planned airstrike. The operation, codenamed Defensive Shield, involved multiple waves of advanced fighter jets, supported by aerial refueling tankers and sophisticated electronic warfare aircraft. The targets were Iran's most critical and heavily fortified nuclear sites, facilities that intelligence agencies had been monitoring for years, suspecting their role in a clandestine weapons program. Fordow, a deeply buried enrichment plant designed to withstand conventional attacks, Natanz, the country's primary uranium enrichment center, and Isfahan, a key research and conversion facility. These facilities, each playing a central role in Iran's long-contested nuclear ambitions, represented the core of its capacity to develop nuclear weapons. They were hit with pinpoint precision, using advanced bunker-buster munitions and guided missiles designed to neutralize the facilities without causing widespread collateral damage. This act signaled a dramatic and irreversible shift from years of covert operations, cyber warfare, and economic sanctions to a state of open, declared military conflict. President Trump, in a televised address from the White House, quickly claimed success and took full credit for authorizing the operation. He framed the attack not as an act of aggression, but as a necessary and preemptive move to prevent an imminent nuclear crisis that threatened global security. The operation was a calculated gamble, years in the planning, with potentially catastrophic consequences, meant to cripple Iran's nuclear program for years to come and send an unmistakable message of unwavering resolve to other nations considering similar paths. For years, exhaustive diplomatic efforts had failed to yield any meaningful results. Now, with diplomacy exhausted, military force had irrevocably taken center stage in this high-stakes geopolitical drama. Israeli officials, long advocating for a more assertive approach, saw this strike as a vindication of their strategic vision. But the international community braced for the inevitable and potentially devastating response from Iran, unsure of what form it would take. The central question: how would Iran answer this direct, humiliating, and strategically significant blow to its national pride and its nuclear ambitions? The world held its breath, waiting for the answer. Iran's response was swift and strategic. On June 23, the Revolutionary Guard launched ballistic missiles at the U.S. Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, a direct challenge to American involvement. Thanks to advanced air defenses, all missiles were intercepted, sparing lives and infrastructure. Though militarily ineffective, the attack was a powerful political statement. Iran would not be intimidated. The strike rattled Gulf states, exposing their vulnerability and raising fears of wider conflict. U.S. personnel braced for escalation, and the world waited for Washington's next move. The region was now on high alert. Would the U.S. retaliate or step back from the brink? The U.S. could not ignore Iran's missile strike. While publicly downplaying the attack, the Trump administration launched new airstrikes, this time targeting Iran's missile infrastructure and command centers. The goal: degrade Iran's capabilities and reassert American deterrence, without triggering all-out war. These strikes marked a turning point, transforming the conflict into a direct U.S.-Iran confrontation. The White House framed the response as necessary to protect American lives and force Iran to negotiate from a position of weakness. But the risk of escalation, and of uniting Iran's hardliners, grew with every strike. The world watched as the region edged closer to a major war. Would diplomacy prevail, or would the spiral continue? After 12 tense days, President Trump announced a ceasefire between Israel and Iran, calling it a major foreign policy victory. The deal, brokered by the U.S., required Iran to halt military operations first, followed by an Israeli stand-down 12 hours later. Markets rallied on the news, but skepticism lingered. Trump's announcement projected strength in diplomacy, but the reality was more complicated. Key regional players were caught off guard, and the language from other officials was cautious. Was this a true breakthrough or a political maneuver? The world waited for confirmation, and for the guns to fall silent. Despite Trump's confident announcement, Israel and Iran remained silent. Neither side officially confirmed the ceasefire, casting doubt on the deal's solidity. Israel's government offered no comment, signaling deep caution. Iran's foreign minister insisted any truce depended on Israel halting aggression first, contradicting the U.S. plan. Reports of continued skirmishes and air raid sirens underscored the fragility of the situation. The gap between Washington's rhetoric and the realities on the ground was stark. Ceasefires between such bitter rivals are rarely simple or immediate. Public declarations may create pressure, but real peace requires painstaking negotiation. Qatar, host to the U.S. Al Udeid Air Base and neighbor to Iran, found itself in a precarious position. The missile attack on its soil tested Qatari diplomacy, forcing officials to condemn the strike while urging restraint from all sides. Behind the scenes, Qatar worked as a mediator, relaying messages between Washington and Tehran. Its stability was vital for U.S. operations and regional security. The crisis highlighted the risks faced by Gulf allies, and Qatar's unique role as a diplomatic bridge. As the dust settled, Qatar's balancing act reinforced its reputation as an indispensable intermediary. Its efforts may prove crucial in any lasting peace. The conflict sent shockwaves worldwide, with fears of a regional war threatening global energy supplies and economic stability. The Strait of Hormuz, a vital oil route, was at risk. Any disruption could trigger a global crisis. European powers urged restraint and a return to diplomacy, diverging from the U.S. strategy of maximum pressure. Arab states, wary of Iran, quietly supported strikes but feared escalation. Russia and China condemned the U.S. and Israeli actions, calling for de-escalation and adherence to international law. The crisis exposed deep geopolitical divides, making a unified response elusive. The world's eyes remained fixed on the Middle East, hoping for a diplomatic breakthrough. The ceasefire, however tentative and fragile, represents a critical turning point. It's a moment where the guns have fallen silent, offering a sliver of hope amidst the devastation. It offers a crucial pause in a conflict that nearly engulfed the entire region, threatening to destabilize nations and redraw borders. The stakes were incredibly high, and the potential consequences catastrophic. For millions of people caught in the crossfire, it's a chance to step back from the precipice of utter disaster, a moment to breathe, to rebuild, and to mourn the losses suffered. It's a chance to seek shelter, find food, and begin the long process of healing. And for the world at large, it provides a much-needed reprieve from the looming threat of economic and security shocks that reverberated across continents. The global economy teetered, and international alliances were strained. Yet let's be clear, the path to lasting peace is not a straight line. It's a winding, uncertain road filled with obstacles and potential pitfalls. It is fraught with deep-seated mistrust, generations of animosity, and a multitude of unresolved grievances that continue to fester beneath the surface. These are wounds that time alone cannot heal. True and sustainable resolution demands a completely new diplomatic framework, one that moves beyond the failed approaches of the past. We need innovative solutions and a willingness to engage in difficult conversations, a framework that directly addresses Iran's nuclear ambitions and its broader influence in the region, which has been a source of constant tension and instability. This is a critical piece of the puzzle. Rebuilding trust, which has been shattered by years of conflict and broken promises, will require more than just handshakes and photo opportunities. It will demand sustained effort, unwavering commitment, and a willingness to make difficult compromises on all sides. There are no easy answers, and the road ahead will be long and arduous. The events of these past 12 days, a period marked by intense violence and escalating rhetoric, serve as a stark and sobering reminder of just how quickly tensions can spiral out of control, leading to devastating consequences for all involved. The world watched with bated breath as the situation teetered on the brink of all-out war. Therefore, this ceasefire is not an end to the conflict, but rather a critical crossroads, a pivotal moment where leaders must choose between the dangerous path of further escalation or the challenging but ultimately more rewarding path of meaningful dialogue. The hope for a lasting peace now rests squarely on the shoulders of those leaders and their willingness to make the courageous decision to choose diplomacy over the destructive path of war for the sake of their people and the stability of the world. The choice is theirs,